We are all set. Without much ado, I warmly welcome the esteemed moderator for this session, Dr. Yamini Atmavilas, to please join us on stage. And let's welcome the esteemed panelists for this session. A very warm welcome on stage to Dr. Rashmi Singh, Commissioner and Secretary, Higher Education, Education and Hospitality and Protocol Department, and Principal Resident Commissioner, Government of Jammu and Kashmir. Very warm welcome to you, ma'am. May I welcome on stage Ms. Kanta Singh, Deputy Country Representative, UN Women India. And may I now take the pleasure of welcoming Ms. Chavi Rajawat, former Sarpanch, Gram Panchayat, Soda, Rajasthan. Very warm welcome to you all once again. And I now hand it over to the session moderator, Dr. Yamini Atmavilas, to take it forward.
Okay, welcome everyone to this very exciting plenary conversation. I'm glad that I could stay on and have this conversation with old friends and new friends. Without much ado, I don't know if how many of you read my prep questions, but if you haven't, it's totally fine. I think we'll keep it as an exciting dialogue, and I don't think any of you will not have much to say. Given the theme on women-led development, I thought we should just dive right in and listen to them. I'll save my remarks for the end, but really want to start off with just your own journeys. Three eminent women who've been in public service, who've been in leadership, who've been in multilateral public service, and really thinking, would love to sort of hear a little bit of about your journey. But I'll ask you a question around what might be one or two or three big examples you have of women-led development that you have either been part of, led yourselves, or have been witness to in your careers. And I don't know what order to go in, but maybe I'll start with Chavi and go in this order, and then we'll do another round with the other way around. But over to you, Chavi. Would love to sort of start with you.
Okay, my turn.
And what examples of women-led development that you have led or seen?
Well, as for the example, I think I'd be the best example. Beat my own trumpet. So I have been a sarpanch for 2 terms from 2010 till 2020, and I continue to serve the rural sector even as of today, even though I don't hold the designation, and that was a conscious choice I made. So I worked in the private sector and decided to get into rural development because when we look at the scale of India and we look at development, I often feel that the rural sector, even as of today, even though the government has so many great schemes and the great intent, and private sector wants to do something, but there still continues to remain a certain gap. And as we know, figures already quoted, thanks to you, we do have a large number that gets sort of sidelined. I would not say entirely neglected, given the schemes that have come up as of today. But there's a lot that needs to be done. And I do feel women-led development is the answer because in the rural sector, especially in societies which are still largely patriarchal, unless and until there is not that leadership which is led by a woman, often the voices of not just the women, but also the youth and the children is missed out. By and large, I feel women naturally are more inclusive and understand the issues both within the household as well as outside. If you look at the country at large, even in the urban sector, the labor, essentially, you'll see the real hard workers tend to be women. No offense to the men sitting here, but that is a reality, and more so in the rural sector. So it is important that we work towards skilling, towards upskilling, towards ensuring that the talent is found and tapped into much earlier than what we tend to do. And something that Andrew also said earlier, that or perhaps hinted at, is that it has to start at the school level, in terms of something as simple as having arts and crafts brought in so that children understand that they have potential. Because when I look at children in the rural sector, what I hate to see is the complete lack of inspiration, lack of knowledge as to what all exists out there that they could possibly do. Even agri, as of today, if you look at the agricultural sector, the farmers do not want their children to become farmers because it's not a viable source of income, especially for the small and medium farmers. But if we bring these basic knowledge at school level, if we also focus on team sports, because that brings in team spirit, that brings in the sense of collaboration and realizing that you cannot live and lead a life as an individual, which is what unfortunately is happening as of today. So these things, I think, is something that has to be taught at a very early stage, and education is key. We have technology, and yet the virtual education, virtual programs, even virtual skilling programs, which I thought with Digital India, we'd get to see a lot of that happening, a lot of collaborations, a lot of people wanting to reach out to the rural sector, which they speak of often, and yet we've not been able to tap into it. The question is why? What stops us? Because as of today, especially the youth and perhaps our age groups that's sitting here do know how to use smartphones. And that can be instrumental in ensuring that that knowledge is passed on and brought to the rural sector. And when a woman is educated, when a woman understands that self-love, and which means like ensuring that her own nutrition, her own life, her own health is very important, and understanding those dynamics, not just for women, but also for men. And that's how I think my leadership was a little different, because I ensured that the men did not feel threatened. When I spoke of the rights for women, when I spoke against child marriage, I also explained to them why, especially for a young girl, it is bad, what happens to her body. I spoke to men telling them that if you want a son, and therefore you will get your woman to produce many children, you also have to think of what happens to her body when she is producing that many children. And just these simple things, and also doing math, making them understand how you will save money, and not continue thinking that if I'm a farmer, I have 10 children, I'm going to have that many more hands to help me till the land, but not realizing that also means that I'm going to have that many more mouths to feed. So very simple things like that, when you're able to share and talk how you and I are talking at the moment, when we are at par, when we are respectful of each other rather than a top-down, which just doesn't work with anybody in any sector, in any field, even with our own children in our households, as we will see. And I think that shift needs to change, because what I've also noticed is a lot of people in the urban sector often feel that working in the rural sector is difficult. I don't think so. From my own experience, I feel rural development is the easiest thing to do. It's just a question of getting the right people to come together and have the drive and the desire to bring about that change. And as Andrew said, it's got to be a shared commitment. And what can we do to make that happen? Because the more we come together, the more we bring in the expertise from different walks of life, from different sectors, that transformation is going to be very, very easy. And that is why I chose to become the Sarpanch, because I thought that since independence, since Panchayati Raj began, we hear of so many schemes. There's so much money that the government is now spending for rural development. And yet, when I looked at my own village, I didn't see it progressing. I only saw it moving backwards. And therefore, I figured there is a gap. So one of the key reasons why I chose to become the Sarpanch was to try and see how we could connect the dots. And even if it's transforming, bring about a holistic development, one village at a time, why not? At least we need to begin somewhere, because when that happens, you also create champions locally, especially within the women and the youth. And one thing I learned, and again, no offense to the men sitting here, is learning where not to waste time. And I realized that we focus on women and the youth and the children, the transformation happens much faster, and it is far more sustainable and scalable. So that's been my journey so far. And I'll end with that at the moment.
Thank you. That's very inspiring. and I'll come back to you for some examples of things that you've sort of led. Chavi would love to hear more into deeper into your experience. Rashmi, over to you. A little bit of your vision for women-led development, and again, if you're able to draw in, I think you've had such a rich and deep career, very diverse. So would love to sort of see if there are some examples you want to bring forward.
Thank you. In terms of the example and the question that you asked, that the role in terms of driving some transformatory programs, I think I have been privileged in seeing a lot of policy shift, and at the programmatic level, how things have shaped up in terms of transacting the change from, say, women welfare to women empowerment, and now the discourse of women-led development. And I would like to compliment again the organizers here for bringing that discourse very much here around with all the wide variety of stakeholders here. And when I reflect on my journey in terms of like directly leading some programs, well, it started with Istri Shakti. In my public service career, let me tell you that, my best experiences have been leading such programs, which have, looked at the change, the shift, as I said, from welfare to empowerment to women-led development. And we should also not forget that there was a time when it was women in development. And today there's a time, from women in development to women-led development. So I've very much been a part of seeing the change at both, as I said, starting from policy and programmatic levels. And Istri Shakti, that was, 2006-7, starting with just piloting some gender resources center. And even the term was probably new. What is gender? Why a resource center? And so from Istri Shakti, looking at all pillars when we are talking about social empowerment, economic empowerment. And at that time, we didn't talk much of political empowerment, though. So, but we did talk about legal literacy. We did talk about legal empowerment. So, starting with that, looking within social empowerment to social determinants of health. So it was like, health as the driver of change, that let's make the woman healthy, come out, improve her health-seeking behavior, draw her out of the family, and then give her a safe space where she can talk about her even reproductive rights and, besides other, aspects of physical and mental health. So that's how the program started. And then we transited to a stage where in 2011, and I'm talking about Delhi at that time, all these innovations were happening in Delhi. So I was leading this program, of mission convergence then, which again, many of you would be familiar with. And it was starting, by the way, Access helping us to set up a PMU with just 7 people. And it turned out that from 7, we had a group of volunteers of 10,000 people working with us in terms of civil society organizations. And Meenakshi, I can see there, and very much a part of it, and now in part of Access team. So here now, what was the change? The change was, okay, let's look at 2 streams. One is safety net, social protection, and the other is empowerment, women's empowerment. And then let's map and target and know who these women are that we are, going to target. So it was a very targeted approach. So starting with, say, household survey, identifying, mapping the vulnerability of each household in terms of, say, being able to find out a woman, who's also a widow, who's also, from the minority or scheduled caste, who's also probably, from the physically challenged. So all kinds of intersectionality gets mapped. And then you start targeting the government schemes to reach out to such a woman. So that is why it's called convergence. So Mission Convergence was that program where government schemes, how do they reach out to the women? And saturate. And then see the change that existing schemes, Nothing new, no new resources, but you only have to target and you only have to converge and you have to bring about collaboration amongst the multi agencies, the multi stakeholders involved, so that you converge, but you do give a resource center where the woman can reach out to. So that was the second program. Now, the third program at the national level, which again I had the opportunity to be closely associated in terms of driving the change, and the program was the National Mission for Empowerment of Women, the NMEW, a precursor to the Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, because all the ingredients sowed in therein ultimately leads to a program of Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao. But here, what was the change? Based on all these that we kept trying in Delhi, from Stri Shakti to Mission Convergence, here the change was, recognizing the fact that, well, you need to mainstream all the gender concerns in all ministries, across all schemes, on a regular, sustained basis. So it is not just one program that is enough. But what is important is that all programs have to have that component of, gender lens, so to say, gender sensitivity, so to say, in all programs. So name it like NRLM or Manrega. And so here was that big change. So it's not just like, when you say Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, it's not just safety of girl child at the time of her birth and, the protection when she's growing up, or thereafter the education. But it's more than that. It was mainstreaming gender concerns across ministry. Well, I would kind of end at these three, but I'm tempted to add that based on leading these three, since then, the shift in the approach, which I have now been able to experience even in myself, is that wherever I am, whether serving as a commissioner GST in Jammu and Kashmir, or say secretary industries in Andaman and Nicobar, what shift did it come? Because of these programmatic experiences, that wherever you are, whatever sector that one is handling, you're able to bring that gender component heavily into it. For example, well, the tender looking for people to run your canteen fails. I'm talking about Srinagar, our sales, taxation canteen. We approach the NRLM self-help group and say, why not, these women to run the canteen? But it meant going beyond the normal set procurement procedures. So I'm glad that you have a session in the or probably a chapter there in the book which is talking about making the procurement of goods and services also more gender sensitive. So that change, or Anganwadi to be created as a livelihood hub through another experiment called Saheli Samanvay Kendra. So why can't Anganwadis themselves also serve as a livelihood hub, resource center, like a gender resource center? So then it became a part of engendering the governance processes in terms of our day-to-day practices, which I advocate more rather than one program. So that's it for now. Thank you.
So wonderful to hear, and I hope that we can continue the conversation we just started on the sidelines, where now NRLM is mainstream gender resource centers across all the districts. So I hope that you will get time when as you move back, to also sort of visit and continue to inspire Rashmi. Over to you, Kanta, same question.
Thank you, Yamini. And I must congratulate Vipin, Pooja, Minakshi, and the team for having the first plenary focusing on women, which is really a great deal. It shows a lot about the kind of attention that the organizers are paying to women's issues. In India, it's just probably by chance that this morning I got a call from a journalist friend who said, why do you always sound so optimistic about women when things are so gloomy? So I would like to take today's event as an opportunity to say, this is probably the last big event of the year. And so I have no reason to feel that things are not going to go great. Of course, what you hear about women's empowerment is true, but so is opposite, right? What Chavi was saying, that there's a lot that needs to happen, but that will also happen. Starting from my own journey, from where I am coming, it was an impossible dream to reach where I have reached. Not that I have reached skies, but from, as I said, from a rural area, studying in a rural school, to where I am today, it wouldn't have been possible if it wasn't for somebody's leadership at right time. Probably my mom, who was a widow. I lost my father at 4. But one thing that I have seen, and going back to what Rashmi was also talking about, women have to do something extra. When I was studying, I got into sports. And that started building the leadership that probably is required to be at my place today. So you do that extra bit. You are a mother, but you're also trying to earn some money. You are studying, but you also are good at arts. So women have to put in that extra effort to be a leader. And there are many, many thousands and thousands of women who are ready to take that challenge. Now, why I am so optimistic about women is that I've seen in my lifetime how things have changed. How there are more girls in education, how there are more girls in higher education, STEM, how women are there across sectors. You have a fighter pilot too. That I can't think of any sector where women are not there. I don't know where women get the courage to defy a strong state like Iran when girls are coming out and fighting. When 5 women are being beaten at home, 10 are standing at the police stations to file complaints. They're not ready to put up with these things. These are all signs of huge changes that are coming our way. Women who 3.4 million SSG women, 1.4 million women in Panchayat Raj, I mean, this is not a small number. There are countries made of only those numbers of people, right? 3.4 million, 1.4 million women in panchayats. It's a great story to tell the world that India is actually taking big steps in women's empowerment. And I'm very optimistic that at some stage in life, when technology will become a great leveler for women, when technology will also start enabling women the way it is also impacting, say, elite people, things will change drastically and faster and will accelerate growth. And that gives me hope. Also, girls who are walking 8 kilometers, Rashmi, in Ladakh region to go to school in the morning. What is it that you feel that things will not change? I feel things will change. It may take a little longer because, but all 4 of us who are sitting here have come through a journey, right? And we have learnt in our way. Data probably is not telling the whole truth. But sometimes, when you torture data enough, it can confess to anything. So we also have to be a little careful about the kind of data that we collect in terms of women's empowerment. And from nano to micro to macro, the story is beginning to come out. I think women are asking for more investment from public as well as private. Gender responsive budgeting is a huge tool that government is now trying to track the budget which is invested for women. So things are looking very positive, and as Rashmi says, from women's development to women's welfare to development to women-led development, the story just emerging. In next 10 years, I think more and more women will be in a position to realize their full potential. And I'm hoping that young girls are learning the right things to say and to learn the right things to reach where they need to reach, because this is exactly what this country needs. And in fact, the world needs more women leaders. When women are leaders, they will not destroy the countries like we are destroying right now. We will not spend more money on killing people. We will probably spend more money on building the countries. And I'm hoping that day is not very far when women will be in the right numbers to speak for themselves. Without them, if somebody else is speaking for them, that is not the right development. Women have to be there, and they have to speak for themselves. They also have to come out and be on the table, probably like we are sitting here, and speak for ourselves, and also other women who are not in a position to. But I think it's just we are almost there. So there's no reason for us not to hope. Thank you.
Thank you, Kanta. Picking up from that, I'd love to sort of zoom out of your lives into the country and sort of see where your vision is and where you think the enablers of women-led development are today in India? What are those enablers in place? Could be policy, could be your own sort of participation in local governance and leadership, those institutions. What are some of those enablers that you think are making this possible and will continue the momentum that sort of Kanta hinted at?
Pertinent question. I think there are multiple enablers, and that's a good thing. That I think is also what's changing and shifting things in our country, where the participation of women is far more than it used to be. But I still feel that there's a lot more that we need to do. Now, locally itself, if we were to look at it, there is, of course, within the government, from the governance perspective, there are a lot of policies focusing more and more so on women and the girl child, which is again shifting things within the rural sector and urban, of course, as well. If you look at the private sector, I think, and I do admire companies which actually send their employees to the rural sector to be there for weeks and months so that they understand. And I would wish that we get to see many more like them participating in a similar fashion, because especially organizations and industries which are looking for blue collar jobs and complaining that we don't have enough skilled labor. But hey, what's stopping you from reaching out and setting up units and again using technology to reach out to the youth in the tier 3 as well as the rural sectors to engage them and train them and see whether you can create that skilled labor that and the pool of talent that actually exists across the country. People are always questioning and saying, hey, we've got like large population, you cannot fix things. But if you manage things well, there's nothing stopping us. It's just a question of that collective effort, and I think more people need to participate in doing that. And if you look locally, within villages also, I think the concept of circular economy needs to be worked upon, where just having whatever limited resources villages have. Now, animal husbandry and agriculture is something that exists across the rural sector. And of course, I'm going to continue focusing on the rural sector and not speak much of the urban or tier 3, because I feel this is where the larger public lives. This is where the larger India exists. And it is important to empower and uplift this society in a very meaningful manner. Now, again, we keep talking about adding value to the produce in many ways, and yet it doesn't happen. I always wonder if we could decentralize the dairy, for example. We have people in villages who are selling milk, and it is milk with fat. So they do not keep anything for themselves. It's all going because they need the money. But what about making ghee? How many villages actually make ghee and sell it? I haven't come across any. Right? So these are small examples. Again, we're talking about biogas, biofuel, and there's so much scope as of today when we're talking about how things are changing and things are shifting. But are we training people? Are we providing that, that mindset shift to the rural sector where there is immense potential to do so? And again, focusing again on circular economy, if we were to link villages, there is so much that can happen, even in just simple things like recycling waste and using cow dung in a more productive manner, creating manure, and trying to get farmers to understand that with the impact of climate change, which again, unfortunately, is not spoken about, the global impact that it has. Farmers understand that there's a shift in the rain pattern, but nobody's speaking about the larger negative impact, and of course it's the farmers who suffer and get impacted immediately and instantly. So also going back to traditional methodologies, but making them more beneficial so that the nutrition of the soil is maintained and the output continues to be good, but not at the cost of losing the fertility of the soil, not at the cost of ruining the quality of water that is what we live on, and so on and so forth. So there's so much potential. And in terms of enablers, again, within the government, there's plenty and more, but it's also important to continuously upgrade their knowledge, to provide them the skill sets so that they can share that knowledge in the rural sector. Again, if you're looking, I'm going to take an example of, say, an agriculture supervisor. I'm going to take the example of a junior engineer who helps the panchayats or is supposed to provide the support to the panchayats, but that knowledge and usage of technology, that shift that needs to happen at the last mile does not happen. So I think these are places where the private sector also, and I would also like to request the audience here to also think of somehow engaging our technical colleges, so be it engineering colleges, be it MBA programs, instead of having internships restricted to the urban sector. I think these children, the youth of India, need to participate by stepping into the rural sector and providing the support, because it's going to be a win-win for both, because they're going to come out understanding what India is all about, while at the same time realizing that at that young age, they have the potential to make an impact which would bring about the larger good to a larger society. So, I mean, I can go on. The potential is huge. It's just a question of realizing that we need to make that shift. The narrative needs to change, but not just the narrative, we need to execute it and just make it happen. It's very easy to do that.
Thank you. Thank you. Rashmi?
Yeah, so first the vision. So I think the system within the governance and society, my vision is that if it can, catalyze at the kind of speed at which things are needed, the scale at which things are needed, for every girl child, every woman to be able to, optimize her potential. So realize her fullest potential. I mean, that's the vision that I personally am committed to, and I'm sure that the system is also kind of providing enablers, because there are definitely positive signals, as both my fellow colleagues are also talking about. And those positive signals are the enablers, which give me confidence that we are on the track of, right track, because your theme is, from vision to reality. So while it is a vision, in terms of enablers, I see that very much, we are on track to fulfill that in terms of reality. What these enablers are, I noted down. Well, we've been talking about starting young, preparing our children, mindset, honing their skills. I think the NEP itself is a huge enabler, the National Education Policy. And here I am, although wearing multiple hats within J&K administration, but I think as the Secretary Higher Education, for the first time, I could delve deeper into the subject and realize how much of potential we have in terms of, when I say leveraging on the various, say the talent pool which is there, already there, the democratic, the dividend that we talk about. So the youth, they are a huge, kind of resource which is there with us. The girls who are there in much higher numbers entering the education domain, their retention, look at the, the earlier figures of girls dropping out, the early marriage, and look at today's figure, the retention happening at the higher secondary level, the girls going into higher education. So huge resources already there. Now, in terms of like policy, as Chavi, as you said, internship, apprenticeship, now, our policy does provide that we can actually leverage on, like, say, you say industry-led, curriculum, or providing opportunity for our students to be able to enter, apprenticeship courses, get attached with industry business houses, or why only business houses in the traditional terms? Say farmers producer organization. In Jammu and Kashmir, when I look at the huge economic opportunity of micro business that's in farm sector, agribusiness. I mean, whether you think about the huge scope of, say, natural oils like lavender oil or saffron, or even dairy products. I mean, with the amazing kind of milk, and I saw women producers company being formed of making, say, dahi, And it's like selling, and the turnover has become so high because they are doing it in a like manner in which the branding is Asli Dahi by women producers, or things like the lavender oil and all also being like locally now with the kind of branding that it comes with. So all that is now starting to be taught in the colleges itself, because you start having, say, business incubators in the college itself. So these innovation centers in the college itself, and our policy does provide. But as I said, that the vision is scale and speed, because while it does provide, can we leverage on the the opportunities which are there to be able to provide that scale and speed so that no one is left behind? I mean, that is the ultimate vision, because as we keep saying, no, no one size fits all. Given the kind of vulnerability which say a girl child in Kupwara or Andaman Islands, I've traveled to very remote islands, and I find that there are opportunities there also, but it's just that it has to be customized to what kind of local customized solutions are we able to provide to that, for the last mile connect. And further, self-help group itself, huge enabler. The women's collective is a huge enabler. So, and you look at the sheer numbers, say self-help groups in Uttar Pradesh or even Jammu and Kashmir. And I've had again the opportunity of like being able to draw, on these groups to be able to leverage on the economic opportunity for their income generation, which can be facilitated, catalyzed through convergent action. How? In say, as in my capacity as the resident commissioner here, we had something called Sambhav Utsav over here. Opened the gates of Jammu Kashmir House and called the women self-help groups from different parts of Jammu and Kashmir who travel for the first time from, say, Rajouri and Poonch and Kupwara, Baramulla, and got to interact with the larger market over here. They were from the SC/ST minority community. They interacted with the larger market, and some of them weaving the kind of beautiful shawls, which Kani shawl, which Kantaji here is wearing. So they do amazing work. Amazing work of, like, say, Sozni and all kinds of embroidery. So Pashmina shawl, when you hear, like, yeah, it comes with such weaves, and so those women, making the demo over here. Or when we call group of these women to come to Lucknow, because I had an organization called Akanksha, which is Lucknow, Uttar Pradesh based. So we had Akanksha Heart over there, just like we had organized this heart in the midst of Lutyens, Delhi, at the Amrita Shergill Marg. Similarly, in Lucknow, there was this heart organized where women self-help groups from Jammu and Kashmir were called there. Besides all the districts of Uttar Pradesh, women self-help groups getting a market over there. Amazing stories I could hear. People with all skill, but they don't have the market connect. So all that we did was give them that connect. So again, we have these enablers, but why is it when I heard the story of this woman that I'm tempted to just share, who had just 1,500 rupees in my last interaction, the Akanksha Haat that I'm talking about. I mean, she had made amazing, from Lakhimpur Kheri, amazing bags embroidered. And with 1,500, she was worried that how do I make my 2 square meals a day, during the week? Because she had no other kind of, earning member in the family. And when she comes to the heart, first day, she sells bags worth 15,000. And second day, her sales went up to 30,000 because she had not believed that, she could there could be a market which exists. So, so her story gave me that confidence again, that bringing that connect, it is so important. So SAGs are there, the local skill is there, entrepreneurship is there, micro enterprise possibility is there. But who are the people who are, all the time focusing on bringing that connect is the big question for livelihood. Another enabler, of course, is the global market. Huge, which is digital revolution. huge market with the kind of skilling potential which exists today to train our youth in AI and all kinds of digital tools. And so, huge market to prepare youth there with uh, the many parts of the world now looking on India to be that skill force. So that we need to tap upon. And of course, the demand and the supply gap, we know where the demand is. And I'm sure all these reports also telling us, but there is a gap. There is that skilling gap. So if we are able to tap on that, then we translate from skilling to livelihood in a much more informed manner, which I'm sure that the researchers over here, the kind of work which is going on, if we are able to leverage on it, or whatever the field level learnings are telling us, and take it to scale with speed, I'm sure there's, the kind of economic power that we want, not just all women to be, but India as a whole to be. It will be there from vision to reality. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rashmi. Speed and scale will remain top of mind for us now as we think of gender equality and closing gaps. Over to you, Kanta, for a last word.
See, in terms of enablers, Yamini, I'll start with our constitution, which is one of the most progressive documents in the world. We got equal rights when we were, we got freedom. I think there was nothing that was discriminatory in terms of women. So, and that's a great policy framework, the bigger policy framework that governs us all. India also brought in women-friendly legislation over a period of time, and those are also great enablers. India also probably started thinking about gender-responsive budgeting in 2000, early 2000, which was one of the first few countries in the region to think about gender-responsive budgeting. So they are great enablers. CEOs and just to go back to what our keynote speaker was saying, that it's not only just good thing, but also a smart thing. Probably CEOs started getting women into leadership roles to look good, that my company is 40% women joining the workforce. They started taking pride in that, but now it has become a necessity. Women have not only proved themselves to be great managers and great leaders, but they are also complementing the talent pool in a manner that they bring different perspective to the market, to the economy, to the finances. So I think the women have become a necessity now. So any company which is not employing women now is going to be left behind in the long run. And that realization is very strong, but also for women, that has become an enabler. Democracy is another great enabler for our country. I would say that. And you know that now women vote in much higher number than men. And they become a great political constituency. So looking after their needs is not just out of love that toilets are being made and gas is being provided. There is a reason for that, right? We all understand that. I don't need to talk about that. And so if women have started asserting their democratic rights or civil rights, they will also start demanding what they deserve, which is great. To me, I mean, that's a great enabler. I also wanted to talk about education, that Rashmi and I also spoke about it earlier, that education again is a great leveler. Technology is another great leveler. Of course, there are disadvantages. There are women who don't have the same access that men have to technology, but at some stage that will improve. And once you give technology in the hands of women, it will do miracles. And that's what I'm hoping for. So there are enablers. There are also gaps, huge gaps. If I start talking about gaps, then I think it'll look like things will never improve. But I don't want to end the year by thinking that things will not improve. Things will improve. And many, many stories. We recently compiled a book called Hum. 75 women leaders from Assam to Jharkhand to the remotest areas, how they have overcome the difficulties they faced in their lives and have taken leadership not only for themselves but also for the communities they serve. And they are not political leaders, they are not business leaders, they are just social leaders. So the awakening is coming, and seeing one woman 5 women also gather courage to do better. And they also start thinking that if she can do it, I can also do it. Similarly, if one incident happens to a woman, 10 other women drop out of school or college, thinking this can happen to her, so it can also happen to me. But I'm saying more and more women are taking the positive route to say, I also have the potential and I can do things better. So there, from vision to reality, I think steps are being taken by everyone now. There's no discourse which is complete without bringing women there. Only two things to my mind that we need to fast track, we need to bring in more, kind of realization into decision makers. One is investment. As Vidya Balan says, entertainment, entertainment, entertainment. I would say investment, investment, investment in education, their health, in their work, also in their businesses. Because when women do businesses, they are far more inclusive, they are far more ethical in their businesses. So we need to invest more women. When women from nano to micro to macro level, when they come into their big business scene, they need more money. And we need to start trusting their sense. You will not lose your money if you'll invest in their businesses. That's number one. Also, investment in their leadership, because it doesn't come naturally to us to assume leadership. If there are 10 people sitting here, we will still be behind because we start doubting ourselves. So we need to invest more money there. Of course, education, skilling, and also livelihoods, we need to put money in women's hands. And so when people say the Revdi scheme or this scheme and that scheme, I'm saying any money in the hands of women would be good money. It'll never be wasted. So we need to invest there. And second, of course, is technology. If we can reach out to the last girl in a small village, probably her life can change faster. Life will change in any ways, but it will change faster if the right technology goes to her. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you. I had one more round of questions, but we are out of time. So I'm going to take 2 seconds to just wrap up. Thank you all for this really inspiring sort of morning and very thought-provoking, some jaws down memory lane, but also looking forward. I'll say maybe 2 words in summing up, which is, I think, one, a lot of the infrastructure, social infrastructure that we need to make women's empowerment happen is in place. But women's empowerment is not linear. It will not just happen because there are certain trajectories in place. We will need to continuously nurture, hone, invest, make sure that systems are set up to optimize and continuously support the speed and scale at which we'd like women-led development to catalyze change, not just for women and girls, but for our communities and economies. So with that, I thank my panelists and I thank you, Access, for giving me this pleasure and privilege of hosting this morning, and over to you all.
Thank you for a thought-provoking discussion, and thank you to the session moderator for a well-conducted session. We do need to empower the women. So we would like to thank the esteemed guests on the days with a small token as an appreciation and our thanks. May I request for the token to be presented? We thank Dr. Rashmi Singh. Thank you, ma'am. Our thanks to Ms. Kanta Singh. Our heartfelt and sincere thanks to Ms. Chavi Rajawat. And of course, a very, very heartfelt thanks to Dr. Yamini Atmavilas for steering the discussion. So ladies and gentlemen, with that, we conclude this session. It's time now to take a small break. Please do note, if you could please, all of you, please together on the stage, front and center. So we take a quick networking break. Please do note that after this, we will reconvene at 11:35 for an exclusive fireside chat on the spot with Shiv. Please do note, please take your seats by 11:35 so that we can start the next fireside chat on time. Thank you.